Welcome everybody today to the sixth and final edition of Wallet Wisdom. My name is Gary Fike. I'm the County Extension Director in Riley County, Kansas, and I am your host for this event. Again, for those of you that were on a little bit earlier, if you want to ask questions or make a comment, go down at the chat box and look me up down there and click that on and send your comments or questions to me. Okay, next slide now. This series is brought to you by K-State Research and Extension, Family Resource Management Program Focus Teams. Our programs are open to everyone, and we do not discriminate against any of these protected classes. Next slide. Kansas State University is part of the land grant system. We have a three-part mission in teaching, research, and extension. We are the K-State Research and Extension Outreach part of that mission, and we provide resources and educational programming to empower our residents and communities across the state. We have offices in every county. You may be in a single county, or you may be in a region or a district rather, like Post Rock or Southwind or Frontier, but there is a physical office in every one of the counties in the state. Next slide, please. We are recording this. So names and or appearance of persons may be captured in the recordings. And we also understand that financial matters are personal. Any questions that you want to ask or comments you want to make in the chat feature can only be seen by me. So send those questions to me, Gary Fike, again, and I will ask a question to the presenter without using your name. We've had this is the final series or rather session of the series, and it's all about credit. This is the sixth one. We've included a list and data topics that we've covered in the past, in the previous 5 weeks. And so those are all over with, but we do have them recorded. If you're interested in finding out more about that, be sure and email us. Next slide. The information that you're going to receive today does not necessarily constitute financial advice. Instead, as we always do in Extension, we try to present an unbiased, research-backed information, content, materials. They're presented for informational and educational purposes, and you make your own decisions on these things. So with that, we will go to the next slide, Joy, and we're going to present Joy Miller. Joy is the Family Resource Management Extension Agent in the Southwind District, which covers Allen, Bourbon, Neosho, and Woodson counties in the southeast part of our state. So with that, Joy, I am going to turn the program over to you, and thank you all for joining.
All right, thank you, Gary. I'm going to start the presentation with a quote, a sentence. But there are two topics that will affect your life, whether you are interested in them or not, and that's money and health. And this statement kind of just resonates with me because my first career has been as a registered dietitian. And so whether we feel like we understand it well or not, we all eat, we all spend money. And so it's kind of what makes things go around. So when I think about our financial health, it's kind of like our physical health. There's things we do day in, day out. So on our physical health, we eat, we are physically active, and we need sleep. Those are kind of the three things to keep us well. When we look at our financial, we're looking at our income, spending, and then our saving and debt. So these are kind of the things we do every day. And they're the things, we do these things so we can do the things we want to do in reality. But just like our physical health, there's the day in, day out things, then there's kind of like once a year things. So I think about like the wellness exam annual wellness exam when you go to your doctor. So it's just going to kind of do an overall check. You might have some lab work, check your weight. Maybe are you up to date on vaccinations, screenings like mammograms or colonoscopies? Maybe you get some prescriptions refilled. So just kind of those once a year things. to check in if our everyday things are going well. So I think of when I was doing this program, kind of like a credit exam, looking at what's going well and what's not by checking your credit. So these are the things we're going to talk about today. Payments, amounts owed, length of credit, new credit, credit mix, and how all those affect your financial well-being. So just kind of like your physical health, if we manage it well in our financial realm, when we manage credit wisely, we can successfully, or when it's managed successfully, we can do things like obtain credit to get things we want. Interest rates, we may get the best rate or the lowest rate possible. The ability to rent or even buy something like a house. Maybe we pay no deposit or a lower deposit on some service, or again, rent because we've had a good credit history. Vehicles, so again, if you need to purchase a vehicle, you're going to get a loan, let alone a good rate on a loan. And then sometimes things like insurance and jobs are based on our credit ratings. So again, can help us out financially in the end. If we have managed our credit poorly, we may pay higher costs, again, in loan rates or service fees. We may lose opportunities altogether. We may have a repossession of a particular item, and then just let alone general stress can be that. So Monica is going to launch a poll. We're just kind of getting a feel of how you might be using credit today.
Okay, we're gonna, if you want to make a choice, please do that just right now. I think we've gotten a number of responses in, so I will end the polling there.
Yeah. Okay. So so it looks like maybe everybody on has had some experience using credit, and we've kind of hit a little variety of all of those where you might be at. And so I see nobody's really a newbie or has never used credit in this poll. So you can stop sharing the results.
Okay.
Gary. So today that's part of it. We'll talk about if you're low or need to rebuild your credit. We'll talk about some steps to do that, and how to improve your credit, and how to maintain that credit, good credit. Oh. All right, so we're just going to first clarify a credit score versus a credit report. So the credit scoring system is a tool lenders use to help determine whether to extend credit to you or not. And this score is based on the information in your credit report. So it's a predictor on how likely you are to make your credit payments on time. And what affects your score is the payment history, amount owed, length of history, credit mix, and new credit. So this is an example of credit scores and how it might be considered a ranking, what's exceptional, good, fair, poor. So if a lender chooses to loan you money, a credit score can also help determine the loan terms and the interest rate you may have to pay. So the most common or popular scoring system is called FICO score, and that's by the Fair Isaac Corporation. And there's lots of ways, even through FICO score, ways to do this computing or scoring systems, what they pull, how they weigh things. So just a reminder that a credit score is a snapshot of a moment. And so if I pulled your credit and score today, tomorrow it could be scored differently. And it just depends on what's come in, the latest information. So just so you know that it's just a snapshot of a moment. And it also depends on which of the credit bureaus it was pulled from. So different credit reports will have a little different information on it. So once you get a credit score, that doesn't mean it will be exactly the same today, tomorrow, or next week. Just something to keep in mind. Now, a credit report is an explanation of your credit history. And that report will show if you're making monthly payments on time, when and where you've applied for credit, from whom you borrowed money, and who you still owe. So the three major credit bureau agencies are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So just to kind of give you when we talk about credit reports versus credit scores, which is which. So really my objectives today is to understand the factors that influence your credit scores, what to look for on your credit report, and identify things you can do to maintain or improve your credit history that's behind those credit scores. So first thing is we're going to talk about payment history, and lenders want to know how customers have handled their credit accounts in the past. So the payment history is one of the most important factors considered when calculating your credit worthiness, and you can see it accounts for 35% of the score. So a lender is looking for delinquencies that may not be on your credit report. So that includes late payments or missed payments altogether. So the more credit accounts that have late payments, say you have 3 creditors you're late with versus 1, so the more late payments you have, or the more to those creditors, can lower your score. Other things is how late are you on things. So a 90-day late payment is going to lower your score more so than a 30-day late payment in general. The more recent a negative information is on your credit report, again, will have a more negative effect. So if it just happened within the year, that'll have a greater reduction in your score versus if it happened 5 years ago. So time, you're going to hear that a lot. Time and patience helps good things happen. So the more negative, or let me say, the lower your overall credit score is. So if you're in that bad to poor to fair, having a missed payment may not ding you as much as if you have excellent to good credit. So while still not encouraging missed payments, it will have more of a dramatic effect with your excellent to good credit scores if you have that one missed payment. So it'll have a bigger impact. On your credit report, things you want to check. Remember, this is a payment history or your track record. And what you want to make sure is that your loan payments and your bills are paid on time. So are they accurate? You can dispute if things are wrong, but if they are true, they're going to stay. So again, you only really want to dispute them if they're inaccurate. You also want to double check that late payments, charge-offs, collections, or other negative items aren't yours. So in some ways, we're kind of looking for maybe identity theft to make sure that they are your accounts and somebody hasn't opened an account in your name and you didn't know about it. And so, of course, you're late because you don't even know you have this account. Also, you want to make sure that your accounts are listed as current or paid as agreed if you have paid on time and in full. So again, you want to just double check the accuracy of those. And if you have filed bankruptcy, you want to make sure that any of those accounts that were included in the bankruptcy, that if they're still listed as unpaid, and anyway, you want to make sure that they reflect accurately that they were taken care of in the bankruptcy. So just some cues on that. So when it comes to maintaining or improving your credit through your payment history, remember this is really kind of a very important step because it has the most weight on your credit score, is to make it a priority to pay all your bills on time, every time, and avoid late payments as much as possible. Also, you at least want to make the minimum payment on there. So if you happen to miss a payment, you may ask a lender for what's called a goodwill adjustment, and they might agree to erase one late payment from your credit history if you've been a good customer. So again, you have to reach out and ask for that. Another thing is you can ask for what is called to be re-aged, and that's if you have an account open, the lender might erase previous delinquencies if you've made a series of 12 or so on-time payments. So again, it's something you may need to ask for. And if you've watched any of our previous Wallet Wisdom series on spending and things like that, just some tips so you're sure not to miss payments is setting up payment reminders like a calendar, email, or text. Maybe you set up an automatic payment so that you're sure to make those on time. Also, if it's kind of a cash flow problem where things are due and you have maybe too many things due, you can ask for a new due date so that when things are due, they match your income and benefits to be able to pay those on time. So just some suggestions on how to help you make those payments on time. So the next section is the amount owed. And so again, lenders consider the overall amount of money owed compared to the credit limit available. And this is called your debt to credit ratio. And usually that debt to credit, we're talking about revolving credit. So your credit cards is a big thing. And lenders like to see a big gap between the credit you are using and your available credit limits. So when a large percentage of a person's credit has been used, this can indicate that they might be financially overextending themselves and they're more likely to make late payments or miss a payment altogether. So getting your balances below the 30% of the credit limit on each card can really help boost your credit score. Getting balances to that 10 to 20% is even better. So just something to consider, even though you might be paying your balances off every month, how much you utilize of that at one time is important to note. So closing accounts can negatively impact your debit to credit ratio, and it can temporarily lower your score. Some other things, sometimes asking your creditor to lower your credit limit will reduce the gap between your balances and available credit, and also consolidating accounts. So you might get credit card offers to transferring balances from a high limit card or a high interest rate card to a lower rate one. But again, we're likely to not have that good debit to credit ratio altogether. So also paying off your account balances every month demonstrates that you're capable of handling credit responsibly. So, and carrying big balances can hurt your score regardless of whether you pay your bills in full each month. So just something to be aware of. If you're typically carrying, I don't know, business expenses or something, and you're maybe at 50% of your credit limit, you may consider having 2 credit cards so you can have a better debit to credit ratio. So again, everything's about watching, monitoring your spending habits and your ability to pay things off. So knowing that the balance and how much you utilize of your credit, lots of people say, well, I keep my credit card for an emergency use. And so this is just kind of one of those, maybe that plan is not the best plan to keep your credit in great shape. So just something to consider. Paying off your installment loans like mortgage, auto, student can help your scores, but and they like to see that the longer you've had that loan and the closer you are to paying it off typically helps your score the most. But paying it down over your revolving accounts typically does not help your credit score improve compared to keeping your revolving credits limits within that 30% usage rate. So on your credit report, one important thing is to make sure that your credit limits are reflected accurately. So you want to make sure if you have a $6,000 credit limit, that on your credit card that it shows the same amount on your credit report. So just something to double check on your open accounts. Okay, so how to improve credit through the amounts owed. And I think about this, credit cards have become such a convenient way to pay for things. It's, you know, the more widely accepted form of payment versus checks, and we don't carry much cash. I also think with credit cards, we're kind of in a gaming system where earn points, earn rewards, travel points, coupons. So there's things that encourages us to utilize our credit cards on a regular basis that might push us over that 30% of our credit limit use. So just be careful with that. The other thing is we talk a lot about when we pay off debts, maybe the highest interest rate cards or and things like that. If you're considering things like that, again, consider where's your credit at, how does it look, and it may be beneficial to pay down a credit card that has a high debt to credit ratio. That may be a consideration in how you pay off your debt. So again, how soon do you need to be using credit? What's your goal? Just some things to weigh out with that. But when it comes to improving your credit, I think some tips is knowing what your credit limits are and what's at least the 30%. How much can you charge before you need to go in and make a payment to lower that amount? Try and use your card lightly. So again, maybe it's purchases that are $20 and under, you always use cash. So finding a rule of thumb of how you use your card, again, to keep purchases minimal. Again, considering maybe having 2 credit cards if you can't keep under that utilization rate, or make several payments within a month to lower those overall balances. So you might consider using 2 different credit cards to keep that credit to debit ratio good. When you're making multiple payments in a month, you want to make sure that a payment before the statement closing date to reduce the balance that is reported to the bureaus, and a second payment between the closing date and the due date. So again, timing those payments can be important, so of how they appear on your credit report. All right, so the length of your history, the importance of this, it's got a 15% weight on your credit score. And it kind of just tells the creditors your experience with the credit system. And the longer it is, the more data they have to evaluate that. So it just reflects your track record of how you've managed credit cards, loans, and other borrowing. So a long credit history is considered favorable when considering your credit worthiness. And like I said, they just have more information to evaluate. So closing accounts, especially as long history ones, can temporarily lower your credit score. So if you can keep them open, that's an optimal thing to do. So again, this section, it just calculation reflects time, patience, diligence, and discipline in managing money, and paying bills on time are are sometimes the only solution in this account. If you choose to close an account, its payment history will remain on your user or your credit card for 7 to 10 years. So I find it interesting. I still see my student loans on there, and I feel like I paid them off forever, but they're still on my credit report. And so that's a good thing. I have some of that installment loan business. But all the other kind of credit cards I've opened up and closed, they're still on my credit report. So they do hang out for a while. All right. So if it's possible, know which one is your oldest account, like revolving credit or credit card, and have you used it recently? So again, that's important to see that you have record of that on your credit report. And then if you're considering if you're going to close accounts, which ones to close or not close, just by the length of that history. To improve your credit, again, keeping that oldest credit card you have, and make sure there's some sort of reoccurring bill to those that might not be used much. So if you have a credit card you don't use much, but it's got a great 10-year history on it, take it out to dinner and movie occasionally. So use it once in a while. All right. Our fourth thing is new credit inquiries. And so what creditors are looking for is, have you been out looking for new credit? Have you been out looking for a loan? And the amount of time that new credit inquiries have been there, like 6 months to a year, can have more of a negative effect on your credit score. So credit inquiries kind of happen two ways. There's a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry. And it's the hard inquiries where you authorize somebody to check your credit for a loan. So if you asked for a seeking out an auto loan or a home mortgage or applied personally for a credit card, those will be hard inquiries, and they will show up on your credit report and affect your credit score. So the more of those you have, the more negatively it'll affect. Now, if you are shopping for a mortgage, doing it in a short period of time for one item is just considered one hard inquiry. So within 30 days is optimal there. The hard inquiries will remain on your account for 2 years, but the credit scoring will only consider what's happened in the last 12 months. So on your credit report, you want to look for, do you recognize these hard inquiries? So again, you're checking to see if other people are trying to open accounts or loans in your name. And basically, we're looking for some identity theft with that. So just something to double check. Improving your credit. So we talked about those hard inquiries. And again, I think of when I go clothes shopping or something, every department store seems to have their own credit card that they were trying to get you. And the hook is you can get 10% off your purchase today if you sign up for this card. So again, those are hard inquiries. And I always think, oh, I'll do that. And then I'm just going to shut it down. But again, those can still lower your credit score. And it may not be a long or a much, but it can still happen. But again, they're going to be on your credit report for a long time that you opened and closed that account. If you are looking for like a home loan or a car loan, something like that, shop around for the best loan rates first, and do that within a 30-day period to reduce the number of hard inquiries on your report. And then if you're shopping for a credit card, all those credit card offers you get through the mail, they have done some already scanning of your credit report or your credit history, know your credit score. And when a credit card sends you offers like that, those are considered soft inquiries, so they don't count against you. So I advise if you're looking for a credit card is to analyze the ones that come to you, those pre-approved offers in the mail, if you need a new credit card for yourself. Our last section is the mix of your credit. And so again, the scoring formulas consider the use of a combination of credit cards, retail credit cards, installment loans, and things like mortgage loans. So credit scores increase when there is a mix of different types of credit instead of all just one. So whether it's just all revolving credit or just all installment loans, a mix tends to do better. On your credit report, this is just kind of informational, but how many revolving accounts are on your report? How many of them are open? And then how many installment accounts are on your credit report too? So, and when do they go off your report? So those of you who talked about saving some money and using credit maybe in the future for a purchase in the future, that might be a consideration, is the timing of applying for that credit for a vehicle, where you might still have some installment loans or some of your best credit history to be used in that analysis for a credit score. So just something to consider. And then our last piece here is improving on your mixed credit. So no matter what, you don't want to open accounts just to have an account. So please know that even though a mixed credit is beneficial, nobody should be taking on debt without the need to do that. But
I'm gonna ask a quick question here because it's
okay.
I don't want to get too far past it here. I had a question that says, what are revolving and installment accounts?
Yes. Okay. So a revolving account is like your credit cards, where even though you pay off the balance, you can charge again. So it's a constant, I can charge and then I can pay off. Where an installment loan is like a car or a home loan in which you agreed upon, we'll just say it's $1,000 loan and I'm going to pay X amount every month, and you work towards paying it off, but you're not adding debt back to it. So there's an end to it. You're not going to add more debt to it. So let's just say, in a car loan, in 5 years, it's paid off and it's done, where a credit card can go on as long as you want.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. All right. Let me know if that wasn't quite as clear as it should be. But so when we talk about applying for revolving credit, we're talking a credit card. And if you don't qualify for a credit card, so somebody who is either new to credit, so talking about kind of like high schoolers or those just new into the workforce, or maybe where you're trying to rebuild credit, you may apply for what's called a secure credit card. So basically you apply or put down a deposit, and then you can use up to what you have deposited on that credit card. So there is some ways around the revolving credit or the credit card where you can get a secured one if you don't have credit or not so great credit. When you pick things like a credit card or a secure credit card, you do want to make sure that it is a card that will be reported to all 3 credit bureaus. So again, back into that, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So you want to check that all 3 of those are going to get reported to through that secure card. So the other thing is applying for an installment credit. So again, this might be a personal loan, auto, mortgage, student loans. Again, with that thin, maybe no credit or rebuilding credit, you may seek out a secure personal loan, which may not be you're buying an object, but you're kind of paying yourself through a loan to establish a credit history. And again, you want to make sure that those are reported to all three credit bureau agencies. Usually you can do those through a community bank or a credit union. So they're just, again, ways to establish credit when maybe you aren't able to get a loan or a credit, or maybe you don't really have a purpose, but need to start establishing a credit history.
Hey, Joy, this is Gary. Another quick question here. So you got the three main credit bureaus, right? So if you check out a couple of them, one of them's got your score at 702 and one of them's got you at 658. Why would there ever be a difference in your credit score among those groups of credit reporting bureaus?
So some of the information may be just a little different on that. And maybe Gary, you know more. I don't know exactly why, other than how things are reported into that system.
I have a banker that told me why that is.
Okay, go ahead.
He said that they use different scoring models. So it could be, like you said, that they have different information, but also they score differently.
Okay. So, and I know, like, when we talk about a FICO score, and there's like a FICO score 8 and there's a FICO score 7. And so they have different formularies. Now, if you're applying for a home loan and they just pull one, it again just kind of comes out differently. So usually if they pull all three from all the credit reports, they'll take the middle score from those, is my understanding.
Well, and somebody also mentioned here that the timing on the reporting by the different credit bureaus may make a difference too. So let's say you paid off a loan or something and when one credit bureau hasn't caught that yet or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, and so sometimes people refer to it as this is a constant movie going on, and really you're just capturing when they pull that score, it's like just one frame of the whole movie. And so the minute that's done, you're off to another frame that will look different when things happen. So okay. Other things that have been noted that can help with your credit score and things to check on your report is the length of time at a job. So if you 3 years and more is kind of a good number for job and residency. So it just shows your stability of working a job. My first job was with a management company called Aramark. And so I had three or four different jobs within Aramark. I moved around, but again, my credit report history reports that I was with Aramark. So staying within the same company, even though you might switch jobs or positions, can look favorable too. So, but if you're switching jobs really often, that may be a flag that you may not have steady income coming in. Length and time at a residency, again, I think that just shows stability of where you're at. They also, a physical address versus a PO box, I guess gives them a little more trust that they know where you're at. So those are things that show up on your credit report too. And you just, like, my name is spelled all sorts of ways on my credit report. My last name was Perkypile, my maiden name. So you can imagine there's all sorts of variations, but for the most part, it's my name. And sometimes my name gets reported as Jay instead of Joy, but again, it's my name on there. So you may have some misspellings, but I see my name in 5 or 6 different ways on my credit report. Not necessarily the biggest deal, but again, just kind of look to make sure that things are accurate. And so I am like my address, my physical address in Fort Scott is on there. And then my husband's address is on my credit report too. So I have 2 residency addresses. So again, looking at that, you can maybe identify if somebody opened an account in your name, where that address might have been at. Just again, another red flag to look for, that somebody might be using your personal information for their benefits. All right. Any other questions, Gary, on that part?
No, I've not had
Okay.
any more.
Okay. So let's kind of move on to the advertisements, the things we hear, like Mint and Credit Karma and NerdWallet and Credit Sesame and all these Experian Boost. So I'm going to go through some of this and what does that all mean? So there's a couple products that are meant to boost your credit. And really these are for people, again, no credit, thin credit, maybe rebuilding your credit. That would be helpful. So Experian Boost gives you credit for paying your utility bills. So you can add things. It's going to connect to your checking account, and so they will show that you've had on-time payments to utilities, streaming services, things like telecom, so cable, probably cell phones, things like that. They will give you a free FICO score, but again, this is probably an estimate, not maybe the real pull from it. And the people who would benefit from this, so if you're applying for something, you want to kind of know that FICO, like if they're pulling a FICO 8, a FICO 9, or Vantage Score 3 and 4. So doing an Experian Boost will help with if they're scoring FICO 8, 9, Advantage Score 3 and 4. The other thing is with Experian Boost is if you want to ask the lender if they're using the Experian credit report, because Experian Boost is only going to report to the Experian Credit Bureau. So just to know that it is free, so it can't help. On average, it'll jump your score by 13 points with Experian Boost, I believe it is. So just something to kind of know. Ultra FICO operates differently. It looks at your bank account transactions and balances. And so really they're looking at, are you not having any negative balances? Do you have money, like a balance in the bank on a regular basis? So it's basing your credit a little differently on that, with that. So again, like I said, it can help jump scores by 13 points, but is most likely to help those with scores in the 500s and 600s. So when I think of boosting your credit, back to my dietitian days, I think of the weight loss. The more you have to lose, the first part is easy. So if you have a low credit score, it's easy to move the needle or move it up. But when you have like the last 5 pounds you need to lose, so it's a lot of hard work just to get a little bit of results. So that's what I think of when you have good and excellent. It's a lot of hard work to move little amounts when your credit score is already good. So just something to kind of keep in mind when you do that. The word piggyback on here is not an official company or anything, but there is services now where you can put somebody on your credit card. So you might see adults or parents putting their children on, and basically they're gaining a credit score off of your behavior. So it may be something you want to do. It may be something you don't want to do. Another way to quote piggyback is co-signing on a loan with somebody. So again, those things will show up in your credit report and reflect on your credit history if you are attached to somebody's credit card or loan as part of the responsible party. So, okay. Managing credit, there's 3 companies that I could find: Credit Sesame, Credit Karma, and Quizzle. They all have similar services, but they're all going to have their unique perks too. These are meant to help you improve your score. They offer free credit monitoring services, free estimated credit scores, free automatic credit alerts. They'll do email alerts when important changes occur, and help with identity theft tracking and protection. Some of these have like a credit simulator, so it gives you a visual of how if you make certain choices, how it will affect your score before you actually do it. And the other thing is, I find even though these are free, part of how they earn their money is by offering products such as credit cards, loans, and auto insurance. So again, if you're having a hard time being approved, this may be a source because they give you some details on what companies are offering those credit cards and auto loans that may be helpful for you if you're having difficulty with that. Oops, I went too far. Mint and Nerd Wallet are more financial and tracking. So they help you with your budgeting, transaction tracking, categorization, bill reminders, and some of them have some credit score tracking. And even though I just put Mint and Nerd Wallet, there's lots of different versions of this. You might hear some of these: Personal Capital, Tiller. There's one called You Need a Budget, YNAB. Quicken, Banktivity, Every Dollar, Money Dance, Pocketsmith, Countabout, Status, and who knows what other apps are on there for your phone. But these help you kind of just electronically do some of that budgeting and tracking pieces. All right. So services are available out there. One is credit counseling. These organizations are usually a nonprofit organization that advise you on managing your money and debts. They'll offer free educational materials and workshops and help you deal with debt. So, and under debt management, they may be able to help you lower your overall monthly payment, but they will not be able to reduce what you owe. And so often they will negotiate extensions or increase the time period over which you may repay a loan, and ask creditors maybe to lower interest rates or waive some certain fees. So you may be making a single payment to the organization and they forward the payment on accordingly. And through that, they may have a fee. They may take a fee out of that payment they're making for them to support their organization. But in general, just the budgeting and the planning is free. So just a reminder, it does not erase your debts. And there's a couple of reputable places to turn to look for a credit counselor. So there's the Financial Counseling Association of America, and you see their phone number and web address there. And then the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, again, another reputable place to look for assistance. Then there is debt settlement or debt relief. And these are usually for-profit companies that will charge a fee for their service. They generally cannot charge you that fee until they have performed their services. So everything has to be settled and completed before they receive their funding. But they can offer to arrange settlements of your debts with creditors or the debt collectors. And they may offer to pay off your debts with a lump sum payment that you save up in an independent account. Sometimes they advise you to stop paying your creditors until a debt settlement is negotiated with creditors. And and it may involve some debt forgiveness, which may have some tax implications with that. So just to be careful and really know what you're getting into. But neither the debt counselors nor the debt settlement companies can erase all of your debts. So they might be helpful tools, but just know they're not going to clear up your credit reports of your past history and issues with that. All right, so a few tools. K-State Research and Extension has an email program called Check Your Credit. And 3 times a year, we send you a reminder to get your credit report. You are entitled to a free credit report from each of the credit bureaus once a year. Right now, because of COVID, you can get them more often, but in general, it's once a year. So about every 4 months, we just recommend you check a new one. And we'll send you that reminder with the link to do that. We also have a program called, excuse me, next page. If you just want to learn a little more about, the difference between credit scores and credit reports, we have a publication called Know Your Credit, and the link is there at our K-State Research and Extension bookstore. And then I really like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau workbook or book. It has 8 tools in it to go through the whole process of what's your score, what does it mean, what to look for on your credit report, how to dispute if you have an issue you want to dispute, and then just tips on how to improve your credit utilization. And again, working through spending plans, budgeting, things like that, a lot of we referred back to, or you can refer back to in our previous presentations here. So that is it. Any questions or comments at this time?
Joy, I don't have any questions in particular, but I'm going to pose something to you just as a note. I've got one child myself who just finished college, another one who's in college presently, and another one that's going to go in this fall. The thing that I get concerned about is they all get bombarded with credit card offers from different companies wanting to get them a credit card, and I've asked them to not go ahead and apply for those, but a couple of them said, well, I don't have a credit score because I don't have a credit card. So when they start renting apartments or houses, then the landlords run a credit check on them and they say, well, you don't have a credit score. I encourage them not to have credit cards until they have a full-time job, and even then I'm not sometimes real crazy about that. But do you advise, or do you think that college kids should have a credit card if you think they can control it to help them build a credit score for those kinds of things, and when they go out into the world? Because otherwise a lot of times they just can't get anything going without a credit score.
I think that's a big I don't think it's harmful to have a credit card. I think it's our behaviors with the credit card. And that's what we need to, I guess, and even as adults, how do we model that? So, talking about once a month to charge something and then, pay it off on a timely basis. So it can just be, I don't know, 1 tank of gas. So they're not looking at it like you use it on a regular basis with that credit card, but it is a start. And where, like, if you have a cell phone bill that you pay every month, it doesn't get reported that you paid it on time. Now, if you go into collections, it'll be reported, but not that consistent paying on a regular basis. So, and you can go back to the secure credit card where you put X amount down as a deposit, to start that credit history versus the other way around where you can get into debt with it. And I think too, if they choose to get a card, you having that talk of what's 30% of your credit limit. And then, you kind of talk about, well, what is it? I don't know what the credit limit. If it's 500, you're not talking about very much that you could put on there. So let's just say you like really nice jeans and they're $100. That purchase alone would be, I don't know, I'm not doing my math well, could be
20%.
getting close to your 30% mark. So, a couple of items may exceed that optimal credit limit. So I think there's just a talk of, yes, you want a credit card to build your credit, but how you use it and how much of that you use is another conversational piece with it. Because avoiding it doesn't teach them how to utilize it, even if they have a full-time job when they get it. So
a couple of other comments, not questions, but one of our clients said that very good information. Thanks for providing updated resources like Experian Boost, Credit Sesame, Karma, Mint, and Credit Counseling. So thank you for sharing those, Joy. And then another client said, my parents encouraged me to get a credit card when I left for college, and it was used only for gas, which they helped me pay off because I didn't have a job, but I was able to build credit for 4 years and start a good habit of using credit for once I entered the working adult world. And I think that's an important thing. That's another thing we did with one of ours was we just put them on ours. And with one of our credit card companies, gave them a card and then said charge 1 or 2 things a month, and we'll pick that up and that will help you. So I think that the scare is always if somebody is a spender and not a saver, and they just go crazy with the credit card, and pretty soon it gets out of control. That's again, that goes back to your comment, Joy, I think about how it's used, not if it's used.
Right. And I think when, I guess I've always tried to live, raising my own kiddo, the safe fail is when they're closest to me or they're youngest. So I think also with a credit card, the safe, if they're going to screw it up, let's screw it up when they're at $500 or $1,000, not when they're at $5,000 to $10,000. So I think we can, if you're trying to assist somebody, it's just talking to them about, yep, you want to build credit, but here's how you utilize it to really build your credit. And if you're using in that debt to credit ratio, it keeps your balances pretty low. Like, I really got to keep that low.
Okay, Joy, I hate to bring this to an end because we're having some really good discussion. Don't have any more questions.
Okay.
But we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Monica, are you putting the link on for a short evaluation in the chat box? Or can we use the QR code to get a survey? There it is. There's the link in the chat box. Please look there, and then it's on your screen now. Shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. We really do appreciate the feedback we get from you to help us improve programming in the future. And if you would like to contact Joy, you can do that on her email, which is not up, but it will be in a minute. They're joymiller@ksu.edu. I don't know how much easier that email could be, Joy, unless they changed it to jmiller, but it is Joy Miller and at ksu.edu. So please don't hesitate to contact her for some more information. So with that, I think I've got, my clock says 12:59. We don't like to run these things too long. Please contact us if you've got information, questions, concerns, comments. And somebody's asking you show the QR code again, please. There we go. Thank you all for joining.